Even if you didn't grow up in church, you know a lot of biblical principles because our society has been based on, our laws have been based on, our morality has been based on Jesus' teachings. That's just the way that we live. But not everyone who hears does it. Come on, we're in church. Not everyone who goes to church and hears Jesus' principles applies them. Not every Christian, not every Christian who knows what the Bible says does it. No one's ready to admit that? Okay, I'll admit it. I got some things where, I'm like, oh, right. I tried it my own way and got my own results. It wasn't the same. And then I learned what the Bible says and went, oh, there's a different way. It's not just good enough to hear. It's not just good enough to attend church. It's not just good enough to read the Bible. You have to apply it. Yes? Come on. It's not so easy to agree to that these days, is it? Because there's lots of Christians, churches who are thinking, that's not really applicable today. Come on, there's principles in the Bible that are unnatural but are still true. There's principles that Jesus taught us that we might not feel are relevant, or they might be old-fashioned, or we might think they're old-fashioned, but the truth is these principles work. And nothing is more true to that than how we view relationships. Jesus gave us, the Bible gives us, a set of foundations, of principles that we apply to relationships that might feel, and I think this is one of the greatest areas in controversies in Christianity today and in church today, is some of these principles, especially when it applies, some of these foundations, especially when it applies to our relationships, this is where we compromise more than anything else. This is where we make excuses as to, well, that's old-fashioned, and that's not today, and that's not my situation, and you don't know, and this, and we don't have to do this. We do this in relationships more than anything else. And at the same time, come on, church, at the same time, this is the area of most pain. Yeah. This is where we hurt the most. This is where we experience the most pain, is in our relationships. And here's where we experience some of the most storms, is our relationships. Isn't it true? This is where we experience the most storms. And Jesus doesn't say, the storm, if the storm comes. He says, the rain came, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house. And then he says, and it fell with a great crash. So this is what Jesus said. If you're going to build your relationships, build it on a solid foundation. And a solid foundation is going to withstand the storm. Not if the storm comes, when the storm comes. And the house that will stand is the one that doesn't just hear Jesus' principle, but applies these principles. There's a difference between hearing and knowing.